Samurai Nippon. The fall of the Hojo clan.
Boom, boom, boom. The sound of drums echoes at the modern Odawara castle ruins. Tourists stop in their tracks. However, 435 years ago on this very day, the same drumbeat carried an entirely different meaning. July 5, 1590, at 6 a.m. Boom, boom, boom. It was the signal of surrender, announcing the castle's capitulation. Why did the Hojo clan, the overlords of Kanto, continue their siege for 100 days? And what was it that they fought to protect until the very end? The key to solving this mystery lies in the first day of the siege. Let us first travel back in time.
Chapter 1. Background and historical setting.
March 29, 1590. The first cry that echoed from Odawara Castle's watchtower, "Enemy forces sighted." At that moment, the Toyotomi army that appeared below the castle numbered 220,000. To understand why requires knowledge of the Hojo clan's 90-year history. Since the first generation under Soun, they had never lost their home base and undefeated legend. Both Wasugi Kenshin and Takeda, Shingen had been forced to retreat before this very Odawara castle. The outer fortifications, called Sugamai, extending 9 kilometers around the castle, were among the world's largest at the time. In modern terms, it was like surrounding the entire area inside. Tokyo's Yamanote line with castle walls, a massive fortress. Even more noteworthy was their economic power. The Hojo domain's rice production reached 2.4 million koku. Converting this to modern values, it was equivalent to a corporation with annual revenues of approximately 480 billion yen. The fertile Kanto Plain and Odawara, the foremost commercial city in eastern Japan. This economic zone, with over 1 million inhabitants, truly had the appearance of an independent kingdom. The salty scent carried by morning mist from Sagami Bay, the spirited voices of merchants echoing through the castle town, mountains of rice bales piled in, storehouses, everything there demonstrated the Hojo clan's prosperity. On the other side stood Toyotomi Hideyoshi. This man's fearsome nature lay not in simple military might. He possessed inexhaustible economic power backed by silver flowing from the Iwami silver mine, cutting-edge technology gathered from across the nation, and, above all, the great cause of national unification. Having already conquered Shikoku and Kyushu, only Kanto remained. He was truly just one step away from unifying Japan. Amid this situation, the spark of destiny ignited. In November 1589, Hojo, retainer Inomata Kunemune, attacked Nagurumi Castle in Sanada territory. This constituted private warfare which Hideyoshi had strictly forbidden. "We've done it now." Ujimasa's expression instantly froze. However, at this point, no one could have predicted that this small incident would become the trigger for the final Great Battle of the Warring States period.
Chapter 2. The protagonist and main forces.
Hojo Ujimasa, age 53. Posterity's evaluation of him is sharply divided. While there are harsh criticisms calling him a foolish lord, there are also assessments praising him as an overly cautious but excellent ruler. So what is the truth? The numbers tell the story. During the 29 years since Ujimasa inherited the family headship, the Hojo domain never experienced a major internal rebellion. This was a miraculous record for the Warring States period. In modern corporate terms, it was like a superior company that continued growing for 29 years without accidents or debt. The characteristic of Ujimasa's reign was discussion. Important decisions were always thoroughly debated with his senior retainers. This approach would later be ridiculed as Odawara Council indecisive meetings, but it was actually a precursor to democratic decision-making systems. His consideration for the common people was also generous, establishing a suggestion box system that allowed farmers to voice their concerns directly. In the castle town, the sweet aroma of soy sauce and the smell of fish grilling over charcoal fires wafted through the air, creating a peaceful daily life. However, times had changed. Protected by Kanto's geographical advantages and maintaining distance from central politics, Ujimasa misjudged the true nature of Hideyoshi's unification enterprise. After all, he's just an upstart lasting only one generation. This assumption would eventually lead to fatal errors in judgment. In the sweltering summer council chamber, Ujimasa, wiping sweat while continuing debates. The perspiration on his brow would soon turn into cold sweat. Meanwhile, his heir Ujinao was 26 years old. In contrast to his father, he sought adaptation to the new era. He had married Tokuhime, daughter of Tokugawa Ieyasu, and was trying to achieve reconciliation with the Toyotomi regime. Ujinao, father, times have changed. It's no longer possible to oppose Hideyoshi alone. However, Ujimasa's response was stubborn. Ujimasa, I cannot so easily abandon the prestige. Built over 5 generations of the Hojo clan. Actually, Ujimasa had his own doubts. His figure walking alone through the castle at night was witnessed multiple times by retainers. The sound of Ujimasa's footsteps in corridors bathed in moonlight.
Click-clack, click-clack.
The sound was like the heartbeat of a troubled lord. But come morning, Ujimasa would regain his resolute expression. It was the pride of a warrior.
Chapter 3, Turning Point Incident Innovation.
Let's return to the present. A 15-minute walk from Odawara Station. Among residential areas stands a signboard for Ishigakiyama, Ichiya-jo one-night castle. Most tourists pass by without notice. However, 435 years ago, history moved at this very location. Now, let's return to that era. 6 a.m., March 29, 1590. The appearance of the Toyotomi army below Odawara Castle resembled a giant festival procession rather than a battlefield. Hideyoshi's main camp featured gold-leafed curtains and various daimyo's colorful banners and insignia. Instead of the smell of gunpowder, even incense fragrances wafted through the air. Faced with this completely different scene from previous wars, the soldiers within the castle were perplexed. Soldier A, is that an army or a daimyo procession? Hideyoshi's siege strategy was what modern military science would call complete blockade. The main force of 150,000 from the Tokaido route, 35,000 Maeda Uesugi, troops from the Nakasendo route, and 35,000 Kobayakawa naval forces controlling Sagami Bay. Through simultaneous attacks from 3 directions, they completely severed the Hojo army's retreat routes. In modern terms, it was like having land, sea, and air all controlled by the enemy. Even so, Ujimasa maintained his composure. The reason was clear. It was Odawara Castle's stockpile capacity. Rice alone for 3 years, approximately 36,000 bales. Expressing this in modern terms, it equals about 180 million convenience store rice balls. Furthermore, the castle had an artisan quarter with swordsmiths, gunsmith, and armor makers in residence. Weapons could be self-supplied. Additionally, dozens of wells were distributed throughout, eliminating water shortage concerns. It was truly designed as a non-mobile fortress city. Ujimasa's calculation went like this. The besieging army will run out of provisions first. Maintaining an army of 220,000 required 300 bales of rice daily. That meant 30,000 bales for 100 days. Moreover, as an expeditionary force, their supply lines were extremely long. Indeed, all previous attacks on Odawara had been repelled. Using this very strategy, even Uesugi Kenshin had retreated due to food shortages. It was understandable that Ujimasa felt confident. However, Hideyoshi employed an unprecedented surprise strategy that overturned conventional wisdom. On Mount Sasayama overlooking the castle, a massive fortress suddenly appeared. This castle, called Ishigakiyama, one-night castle, actually took 80 days to construct. However, by cleverly concealing it with surrounding trees and then clearing them upon completion, it appeared to those inside the castle as if it had materialized overnight. The intimidating presence of this castle looking down on Odawara, from approximately 260 meters above sea level, took the breath away from soldiers within the castle. Even more astonishing events followed. Hideyoshi began holding tea ceremonies and no performances in the siege camps. Outdoor tea ceremonies with Sen no Rikyu, no performances by the Kanzei school. What drifted from the battlefield was not the smell of blood, but the fragrance of matcha tea, the sounds of drums and flutes. This was sophisticated psychological warfare, continuously sending the message. We have plenty of leisure time to those inside the castle through all 5 senses. The turmoil within the castle could not be hidden. Soldier B, did they come to wage war or to enjoy themselves? Soldier C, daily banquets. While we eat simple meals, subtle anxiety began spreading among the lower-ranking samurai. It was like the oppressive atmosphere before a summer evening thunderstorm.
Chapter 4, Climax.
Day 30 of the siege. Let's return to the present here. What would happen if modern Odawara citizens were prohibited from going outside for 1 month? While food could be managed through stockpiles, the psychological stress would be immeasurable. In the Warring States period, without internet or television, The psychological state within a castle completely cut off from the outside world was beyond imagination. Now, let's return to the Warring States era again. Day 50 of the siege, the first shock hit. Tragic news arrived from Tsukui Castle, one of the subsidiary fortresses. The Toyotomi army's attack is fierce. The roar of large cannons shakes the earth, and castle walls are crumbling. Large cannons meant artillery. The explosive sounds of gunpowder echoed through the mountains while gun smoke filled the air. This was the beginning of modern warfare, completely different from previous battles. Despite Castle Lord Naito Tsunahide's desperate resistance, Tsukui Castle was on the verge of falling. Next, an express messenger arrived from Nirayama Castle's Hojo Ujikuni. The messenger's face was covered in dust and sweat, and his horse collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Nirayama Castle can no longer hold out. The report contained terrifying details. The Toyotomi forces were not simply conducting frontal attacks, but employing precision strikes targeting the castle's water sources and granaries. This was warfare of an entirely different dimension from previous tactics. Day 70 brought decisive news. Hachioji Castle had fallen. Moreover, the details were cruel. Through a surprise attack targeting Castle Lord Ujiteru's absence, many women and children who had been defending the castle became casualties. The sobbing of women echoing within the castle was more heartbreaking than the evening cicadas and more oppressive than summer heat. To understand Ujimasa's state of mind at this time in modern terms, imagine a company where branch offices are being forced to close one after another, and headquarters is also under siege. External communications are severed, and the safety of employees' families is unknown. Yet as the top executive, decisions must still be made. The word divine fate began appearing frequently in Ujimasa's diary. Ujimasa alone in his office at night. Each time the candle on his desk flickered, his shadow swayed greatly. Day 80 brought an earthquake within the castle. A secret messenger from senior retainer Matsuda Norihide was captured in the Toyotomi camp. Norihide had been secretly communicating with the Toyotomi side, leaking detailed information about the castle's interior. Furthermore, it was discovered that he had been encouraging other senior retainers to surrender. Ujimasa, Norihide, why? Norihide, my lord, further sacrifices are meaningless. Ujimasa's expression facing this traitor held not anger, but deep sorrow. Day 90 saw turmoil finally surface within the castle. Particularly among the foot soldiers, discontent exploded over their inability to send money to their families. Converting the annual income of samurai of that time to modern terms, lower-ranking samurai earned about 3 million yen annually. If income ceased for 3 months, families would face hardship. Some began deserting, and organized resistance reached its limits. However, here arises a historical mystery. Why did Ujimasa still not surrender at this point? Actually, Ujimasa had one final secret strategy. It was creating changes in the situation through stalling for time. If Hideyoshi's large army could be pinned down in Kanto long enough, rebellions would surely break out somewhere. Particularly, the Kyushu situation was unstable, and preparations for the Korean invasion were also pending. If Hideyoshi retreated, it would be a great victory for the Hojo clan. On the night of Day 99, Ujimasa faced his final decision. A general assault by the Toyotomi forces was scheduled to begin at dawn the following day. All subsidiary castles had now fallen, and Odawara Castle was completely isolated. Unity among the retainer band within the castle had also collapsed, making continued combat difficult. Still, Ujimasa hesitated. The sound of footsteps pacing all night echoed through the corridors. Then came the morning of Day 100, boom, boom, boom. The sound of drums echoed within the castle. It was the signal announcing surrender. Ujimasa, the 100-year dream of the Hojo clan, ends today. However, if we can protect the lives of Kanto's people, that is enough. Until the very end, what Ujimasa tried to protect was the lives of his subjects.
Chapter 5 Conclusion Impact.
July 5, 1590. The castle gates slowly opened. First appeared Ujinao in white robes, followed by senior retainers, and finally Ujimasa and Ujiteru. The Toyotomi forces were overwhelmed by the solemn atmosphere and instinctively lowered their voices. In the Warring States period, a surrender ceremony enveloped in such silence was rare. Both victors and vanquished felt the weight of history. On July 11th, Ujimasa and Ujiteru committed seppuku as promised. The location was the residence of Tamura Awanokami within Odawara Castle. Ujimasa was 53, Ujiteru 48. Their death poems embodied the pride of the Hojo clan. Ujimasa, the rain clouds that covered the moon and the mist in my heart both clear, and tonight I go west to the mountain. Ujiteru, in the autumn wind, now both heart and spirit, like the tips of grass leaves, fall as dew. Their figures maintaining warrior dignity to the end moved many to tears, regardless of which side they were on. Meanwhile, Ujina was spared and sent to Mount Koya. Later, he was granted 10,000 koku in Osaka and attempted to rebuild, but died young at age 30 in 1597. The cause of death was attributed to mental stress. The long siege, his father's death, and the sorrow of losing his homeland had eaten away at his mind and body. With Ujinao's death, the Hojo clan as a warring daimyo family was completely extinguished. Now let's return to the present. The impact of the siege of Odawara extends to modern times. First, this battle marked the end of the Warring States period and the beginning of the peaceful Edo period. A society without large-scale warfare for 260 years, this is a rare example even in world history. Additionally, Kanto became the domain of Tokugawa Ieyasu, laying the foundation for the later Edo shogunate. The fact that present-day Tokyo became Japan's capital also originated from this decision. Even more noteworthy is the new form of warfare demonstrated by this battle. Hideyoshi achieved victory not through pure military force, but through a comprehensive strategy combining economic power, technological capability, information warfare, and psychological warfare. The construction technology of Ishigakiyama One-Night Castle, efficient logistics systems, and the use of psychological warfare all became precursors to modern warfare methods. These were innovative techniques that connect to modern military strategy. Changes in samurai class consciousness were also important. This marked a shift from the previous value system that considered dying in battle virtuous to realistic thinking that avoids unnecessary sacrifice. Many Hojo retainers served the Toyotomi side and demonstrated their talents. This change connects to the modern concept of job changing, a transition from lifetime employment to merit-based systems. The end of the Warring States period simultaneously meant the transformation of Bushido values. Most importantly, this battle established a culture of resolution through discussion. The peaceful governance system of the Edo period and the prototype of modern Japanese democracy all originated from the lessons of this siege of Odawara. The destruction of the Hojo clan was not merely one family's tragedy, but a major turning point in Japanese history, the starting point of Japan's peace culture.
Ending.
Let's return once more to the modern Odawara Castle. The castle ruins park bustling with tourists. Children's laughter echoes throughout. The memory of the siege 435 years ago has already disappeared into the depths of history. However, at that moment, wind blew. For an instant, the sound of drums seemed audible. Boom, boom, boom. Perhaps it was Ujimasa's final wish to protect the lives of his subjects, still echoing into the present. Hojo Ujimasa's choice was not defeat, but a bridge to a new era, maintaining pride while avoiding unnecessary sacrifice. We who live in modern times also sometimes need the courage to accept change. The lesson to be learned from the siege of Odawara may be that true strength lies in making appropriate decisions at appropriate times. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.